And Oliver Farage joining us here on set today. In the international papers, we've got those strong words from the IMF chief, Christine Lagarde, for Washington. Oliver.
That's right. Christine Lagarde has told members of Congress to get their act together. And she says that the US deadlock threatens to have implications far beyond the United States. She says it risks plunging the world into another recession. She also says that the breakdown in talks between the White House and the Speaker of Congress, which leaves the US in danger of hitting its debt ceiling on the 17th of October, it will mean that it could default on its debts. And Christine Lagarde said, when you're the world's biggest economy, you do not have the option of going into the creative accounting business, as she says, and there's simply no way around raising the debt ceiling. And this follows from the G20 and the head of the World Bank saying similar things in the past week.
And bearing in mind what's going on at the moment, the bizarre thing is, if you like, that President Barack Obama has been an opponent himself on raising the debt ceiling in the past, hasn't he?
Yes, he's had a bit of an about face. As a senator in 2006, during a vote on raising the debt ceiling, he was adamantly opposed. A cartoon by Summers in today's International Herald Tribune reminds us of one of his comments when he was a senator. He says, raising the debt ceiling shows a failure in leadership. It is unpatriotic and irresponsible. And we see two doctors diagnosing him right beside him, and they say hypocrisy. It's a pre-existing condition, which of course is a reference to the way insurance companies used to get off insuring certain clients.
Clever cartoon there. Now, the government shutdown in the US, of course, continuing as well. One famous landmark, though, is back in business.
Yes, that's the Statue of Liberty. The New York Times is reporting that it opened its doors once again on Sunday. Now, like other national parks and monuments, it has been closed since the shutdown took effect on the 1st of October. But the state of New York has stepped in and taken over the temporary running and financing of the statue. It's paying the National Park Service $61,600 per day for the running of it. And that is part of a number of one-off deals that have been cut between individual states and the federal government, also happening to keep certain major monuments open, like the Grand Canyon and Mount Rushmore. And the New York Times quotes American tourists Bob and Nancy Hughes from Minnesota, who were happy to visit, their first time visiting, but they said they're worried what foreign tourists might think about the shutdown. They said, it makes us look horrible.
Very true. Well, it's good to see it open once again anyway. Now, let's move away from the figures. The Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons won, of course, the Nobel Peace Prize last week. Now, though, the New York Times has a very interesting story about a former Director General of the organisation. He says he was forced out by the Bush administration.
Yes, José Bustani, who's now Brazil's ambassador to France, was the OPCW's first Director General, and he says the Bush administration wanted him out because they perceived him to be an obstacle to the Iraq war. He says that then Under Secretary of State John Bolton walked into his office one day in 2002 and told him he had 24 hours to resign. Bustani refused, and he was forced out in a special session on April 22nd, 2002, which is, of course, 11 months before the Iraq war started. The reason Bustani gives is that Iraq and Libya had both applied to join the Chemical Weapons Convention earlier, or the previous year. That would have meant inspections like what's happening in Syria now, inspections and ultimate destruction of any particular stockpiles. And he says that the United States did not want it coming to light that Saddam Hussein's regime had no chemical weapons, even though Bustani said it was widely known at the time that there were some. Now, Bolton is sticking to his guns. He says that Bustani was sacked for incompetence, and he's even suggested that the former OPCW chief is a little bit paranoid. But diplomats in The Hague say that Washington had indeed targeted Mr. Bustani for, quote, seeking an inappropriate role in Iraq.
Oliver, thanks very much. That's sort of a
You're
very
very
looking at the international papers here on France 24. Coming up for you in the next half hour, we've got the latest news. Plus, we've a special focus report for you today on the tough life that Syrians face as they struggle to live in Lebanon. A quarter of the population in the country are Syrian. They face curfews and evictions. That's in the next half hour here on France 24.
They took up arms during the post-election crisis in Ivory Coast. Today, the ex-servicemen are filled with bitterness. Despite the government's efforts at reintegration, many feel that they have been forgotten. we meet the heroes who fear it is they who are the real casualties in the Ivorian crisis. The Observer's Direct on France 24 and France24.com.